morning, it's just gone 12 o'clock on Wednesday the 15th of July, which means it's time for our weekly Leaders Q&A. Obviously things are moving into more of a sense of business as usual, so I'm very happy to hear your thoughts on whether this is a useful exercise, whether this is something you would want us to continue. It is something I would wish to continue, but recognising that actually the issues that are going to come up will change and will become more business as usual. There are a number of things that perhaps we want to share with you, and I would expect that there are things that you want to share with us over time. So the first thing I would say is that tomorrow marks a year since BCP Council declared a climate and ecological emergency, and during that time we have made some really good strides towards the work that we pledged to do. A couple of things that is worth referencing is the fact that we're now using 100% renewable energy throughout our buildings, our street lights, our rental properties, which is great for you as a taxpayer. It's also great for you from an ecological point of view. We have also adopted the UN Sustainable Development Goals within our corporate strategy. So if you fancy having a read of our corporate strategy, you can see how each of those 17 goals coincide with the various things that we're planning to do. The other things which you might be interested in is we've referred over 700 people to LEAP, which is to help people with fuel poverty. I will see if we can share some information. I've got it somewhere on my desk around the ability for anybody to get an assessment under the, let me just tell you what LEAP stands for, under the, where is it? I want to get it right. Local Energy Advice Partnership, where you can get advice about how to save on your carbon, and there are a number of things you can do if you meet the criteria, and the criteria is pretty broad, so that a lot of people that you might not expect to qualify do qualify under this government scheme for various home improvement issues to help with your carbon footprint and, more importantly, your fuel costs. So I would recommend looking up LEAP on our website, and hopefully one of our comms team will be able to put a link up for that as well. A couple of other things through the climate and ecological emergency is obviously we've now extended the Beryl bikes across Bournemouth and Poole. They are the second most popular bike share scheme in the country, and we're just completing our procurement process for the extension to Christchurch, so we hope that we will have a bike share scheme available in Christchurch very, very soon. That's really great news. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people struggle to appreciate why the council takes so long to do some things, and very often it's because we are legally obliged, using public taxpayers' money, to go through a process whereby we have to ensure good value for money, we have to ensure fairness, and we have to go through a process of due diligence before any contracts are awarded. That sometimes feels like, you know, we're wading through treacle, but we're getting there. One thing in terms of procurement, which you probably will be interested in, is some of the issues we've had over the summer with parking and the so-called fly parking are because we've had limited opportunities with regard to fining people higher or towing vehicles away. We have just taken a decision to the management board around clamping options in terms of being able to clamp vehicles that are illegally parked, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to get something in place within a matter of weeks. Tow away is something else we are looking at, but again, we have to be sure where a contract exceeds a certain level whether it meets the procurement rules, so it does sometimes take a little bit longer. Okay, so I've had absolutely no questions so far, which is great. I'll go and have a cup of tea, but if anybody wants to give me a question, you can. We have had a fantastic response to our Leave Only Footprints competition, which was set up for children to get involved with the the media around litter. We went to our schools and offered children the opportunity to create posters, with the commitment that we would turn some of those posters into decals and posters to go out in the public domain. Fantastic response to that, and the judging has taken place. It's finishing today, and we will be announcing the winners in the next couple of days. We will be publishing the entries on a separate web page, and we've had some great support from some of our partners, including the business improvement districts, around using some of the entries on empty shops and things like that. So hopefully we should see some good feedback. So what else have we got? The Together We Can Community Hub is still operational. We have reduced down its hours. It is now operating 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. But for people who have a crisis outside of those hours, we do obviously have an out of hours helpline that people can call, run by our adult social care team. So I would just offer the reassurance that if someone is in food crisis or finds themselves in need, then there is always the option to contact the council. But the Together We Can programme is now not particularly busy. A lot of the volunteers now have an established relationship with the people that they're supporting, and there's no need for them to be calling into the hub directly. The work of the hub will eventually move into our community engagement and community development work. So the learning from that will go forward to say how can we best make sure that we have options to help people who are more vulnerable. So the other things to let you know are that if you have a business and you currently haven't been able to receive anything from the small business, extended retail or the local discretionary grant fund, we are opening the second round of the discretionary scheme on Friday. We're just finalising the details of that. If you haven't been able to claim yet and you think that you might be able to, the best advice I can give you is go onto the homepage of the BCP Council website, look towards the top of the screen, and it gives you the option, let's see if I can get this right, gives you the option to go for news sign up. Click on there, select business emails, and you'll be able to get an update whenever anything related to business is issued by the council, and make sure that you qualify. Okay, could I get back to... Okay, somebody's just saying they've seen my Q&A. My best suggestion, if you've got a thing you want to ask it through Facebook and I can reply to you live. A bit of information about the best way to contact the council. I would strongly urge people to use official channels to contact the council. We see a lot of people sending messages in through Facebook, which is great. The difficulty is that it's very difficult for us to do an audit trail and to be able to make sure that your concerns are addressed to the right people. So if you have access to ask questions on our website, there are a number of ways you can get in touch with us, and it goes through a filtered system so that it goes to the right department. If you have local issues that relate to your area rather than strategic issues, so whether that be ongoing difficulties or concerns or ideas, everybody in BCP Council has at least one ward councillor. Most have 2, some have 3. The details of all ward councillors can be found on the website under the councillors page. You can contact all of them by email. Some of them also have telephone numbers attached, but please be mindful, we do not have work phones, so when you're calling somebody on their phone, a lot of councillors have other jobs. This is not a full-time role being a councillor, so it may well be that they can't respond to you straight away because they've either got work, family or other commitments. And be mindful of the fact that they are at home, so please make sure that you call at a reasonable hour. It's generally better to go by email, because if your concern can then be properly documented, it can then be forwarded to the right people, and we can make sure that we respond in a timely fashion, rather than a phone call, which can very easily be misinterpreted, and very often you don't actually get the full nature of what you've asked. So I would definitely recommend that. The other thing which people underuse is our report it function. So a huge amount of the everyday things that councillors get asked about can actually be resolved very easily via report it. So for example, if you've got a pothole in your road, go onto the website, choose the part of the council that you're in, whether it be Bournemouth, Christchurch or Poole, go through to that part of it, report a pothole. You can put onto the map exactly where it is. You can ask to be updated when it's been resolved. And generally speaking, you'll see it resolved. If it doesn't get resolved within a reasonable amount of time, that's the point in time to escalate it to your ward councillor. The same is true with street lights that aren't working, trees that you want to have works done on if it's a concern about a tree. What else have we got on there? Mist bins. Again, rather than contacting somebody who then has to contact somebody else and somebody else, go through the report it system. It will end up going straight into somebody's direct workflow. Okay, so I've had some questions emailed in. Thank you, Tina, for your help. So I don't know why I can't see the questions. It's very, very strange. I thought something strange was going on. Tina, you might need to send them on to me. Good morning. Do the council and health officials get immediate access to local COVID figures? Are you seeing the questions?
Yeah.
Okay, so my husband is seeing the questions. I'm not seeing the questions, which is why I'm chatting away to myself, thinking that there's nobody watching. Slightly concerning. I'm putting up my husband's phone because it's bigger than mine. Okay. So people are saying, yes, continue. Okay. Do the council or local health officials get immediate access to COVID figures? Yes, we get twice a week updates through public health. We are currently have only 5 cases in the BCP area. Okay, I'm scrolling down. Are there any plans of yet for the 3 infrastructure projects, Lansdowne, Wessexfield and Magna Road? Okay, Rob, so Lansdowne is going back for what's called a change request because there have been some changes that need to be done because the bus companies are unhappy with the original proposals. So we are hoping that some boots on the ground and some spades in the soil will be taking place within a matter of weeks, certainly by the autumn. Wessexfields is currently out to a market engagement. So you'll be aware that we want to do a Meditech and sustainable housing project there. So we're actually got that out to market at the moment to see what the interest is. Magna Road, I'm assuming you're talking about the land north of Magna Road in terms of the housing. There are planning applications in at the moment, and that planning applications, as you'll know, take an awful long time. Okay, wish trade was open at the tips. I do keep raising this. I think you'll find that's probably imminent because ultimately we are returning to normal with our tips now. We are seeing that the number of people attending later on in the day has gone down, and so we are returning to the traditional opening hours with immediate effect. Okay, brilliant news with the bikes. Can we get co-wheels at Christchurch too? Gavin, I thought it was there, so I will find out. We do have a car sharing scheme, but somebody's asked the question, the car share scheme in Portsmouth. You can register for co-wheels, it's fantastic. I'm registered for it. You can book on to use one of our electric or hybrid cars. I'm sure Tina can share what the co-wheels scheme is there. It's very low cost and a great way of sharing ownership of, use of cars without having the restrictions of the costs of ownership. Right, okay. So, I think we have an issue. Yes, we do have an issue. Household recycling, is it recycling? I have answered this last week. Yes, our recycling is recycled. And actually, you'd be really pleased to know that your black bin waste goes to something called a materials reclamation process up in North Poole at Magna Road. I've been there. If they ever open their doors again, and New Earth, I would suggest open your doors and show us what people do, because it's fascinating the way that your black bin rubbish comes in, and even though it's refuse, we're still pulling out stuff. So if we can recycle, we will. Please ask Matt Prosser to do this. Matt Prosser is the chief executive of Dorset Council, not the leader. So if you want something the same as the leader, then it would be Spencer Flower, who's the leader of that council. There's an abandoned car in Copse Close belonging to the Travellers. I understand BCP have to arrange collection. Can we confirm when? but I'm not going to be able to answer that question. Have you reported that? Again, abandoned vehicles can be reported. The quickest way to deal with it is report it. Reference empty shops. Is there anything that can be done? Okay. There's been previous talk to develop IFOD playing fields into a cafe and play area. I'm not aware that at the moment there is a live. If you talk IFOD playing fields into. Not aware that there's a live project on that at the moment. So you might, if you want to drop me an email, James, I can make some inquiries, but it certainly isn't something that's coming to Cabinet in the next few months. Any plans for a park and ride for BCP? Not really. Obviously we've had park and ride we have it for the Air Festival. That's quite a different proposition. The park and ride that we have in Poole is for Christmas. You have to have a consistent level of business to support a park and ride. It's quite intensive in cost because of the amount of buses that need to be committed to it, the regularity of buses, and we need to know that that is going to come in. We don't have a huge number of people coming in sort of out of season in the same way. That the difference, it's not like going into Oxford or York where it's a year-round attraction and where people are going in, you know, whatever the weather, and you can therefore park outside and know that the trade is there. So park and ride is slightly more problematic. The other issue we've got is that we have very little land available that's developable, and therefore to actually set aside a vast area for park and ride is not necessarily workable. The other thing to bear in mind is a lot of our visitors that come are coming for a day at the beach, or they're coming on holiday, and actually it's not overly conducive to parking up and trundling your buckets and spades and picnic blankets and windbreaks and all the rest of it. So it's been looked at. It may be a solution, but no active plans at the moment. If anything, there may be a park and ride solution to Wessex Fields and that sort of area, but there's nothing live at the moment. Do I know where Winton and West Howe Library will be open? Our libraries are reopening in a phased way. We've got 4 libraries open as of last week. That includes Kinston, so the nearest one to West Howe would be Kinston. That is open. You can use your West Howe card there. The nearest one to Winton will be Bournemouth. There are 4 more that are opening next week and the week after. They are Broadstone, Castle Point, Camford Heath, and I'm going to forget the last one. Libraries. Can't remember the 4th one. Boscombe. So 2 open next week, 2 open the following, 2 open the following week, and therefore you won't be seeing Winton or West Howe open in the immediate term. The remaining ones are due to open in August, but there is an order and collect service, and so you can use the other ones. So have a look on our reopening of libraries page. I'm sure the guys will put a link there, and you can see what services that will be available at the libraries that are open, what libraries aren't yet opening, and of course you can go to an alternative library. Residence permit for cheaper parking and cheaper access to tourist attractions. But we are looking at a number of issues around our strategic parking review, whereby we might be able to increase our parking charges and then have some sort of discounted arrangement for residents on production of a card. It's far more complicated than you think to actually create such a card. We also have to be mindful that it's, tourist attractions need to make money. And if we fill them up and they don't make money, then they won't exist. That the reason that pricing is as it is because people have got to make a bit of money. And a lot of our tourist attractions, for example, Rock Reef, the ocean area, are certainly 2 of them. Splashdown, I think, is another one. Where in the winter, and of course the Crazy Golf, which I'm a huge fan of. A lot of them have winter residence discounts. You show evidence of where you live, and they'll often have a discount. So out of season, in season, they've got to make their money. And I don't think we should be challenging them over making money. Residence permits for cheaper parking, we need to be looking at not parking. We need to be looking at getting the bus or a sustainable way forward. So what we don't want to do is to make the car the prime reason for getting around. Are we responsible for CCTV or the police? We are not responsible for the police. The police are responsible for the police. We are in partnership with the police on lots of issues around antisocial behaviour, licensing, public order. If you've got a problem with looks like your child's being offered drugs, which is horrendous, you need to report. 101, report every time you see something, because the more you report something, the more likely it is to get resolved. If you just think, oh, it's not going to get resolved, the police won't know it happens, and they won't be able to put resource to it. So my advice, and I speak as the chair of the Broadstone Neighbourhood Watch, is always report, because if you don't report, it doesn't exist. In terms of CCTV, we do have some CCTV. Our Bournemouth CCTV is based in the police station, and obviously, if illegal activity is reported, then there's cross-working that happens there. Okay, thank you for Christchurch's brand new street sweeper. Do you know what? There's a lot of criticism of BCP, but I think we have to accept that in some areas, the previous councils didn't all do a great job of everything. And my goal is to make sure that where something is not done well in one area, that we lift it up to be as good as it is elsewhere. And street sweeping is a perfect example, and some of the other road measures in Christchurch, for a range of reasons, wasn't as good as it could have been. And I think that it's very easy to have a go at BCP Council, but we're a year old, and when Christchurch came in, it came in without any road sweepers, without a policy around how they dig the weeds out of the verges and things, and so it hadn't been done. Those things were being done in Bournemouth and Poole, and what we've done is we've reallocated some of our Bournemouth and Poole resource to make sure that it's lifted across the board. And we're going to have to make some difficult decisions in the coming months and years about where that average sits. There are dozens, if not hundreds, of policies that still have to be resolved, and I would urge you to just take a little bit of time to say, in our first year, we've lost 3.5 months to COVID. The first couple of months was setting ourselves up. We haven't had that much time to change an awful lot of policies. So the goal is to make sure that everything is harmonised within 2 to 3 years. We're only a third of the way into that. Okay, the abandoned cars been reported on Saturday. Okay, Graham, I'm not going to go back into specifics. We can have a look at that. So why are Tesco's no longer upholding social distancing? Now, I've had a complaint about Tesco's. Tesco's have taken a national decision to remove their one-way system. They still have social distancing measures in their stores. They still have the sneeze screens. They still have the 2-metre lines. They still have some signage. They've taken a commercial decision to remove one-way system. That's their right to do that. Every business is responsible for making sure that they've taken measures that are appropriate for their staff and their customers. If you don't feel that those measures are measures you're happy with, then there are other supermarkets available you could use. But we don't control Tesco's. Tesco's still are operating in a safe way under the legislation, and they've taken a national decision, and that's their concern. Was there a public question about the closure of the Lower High Street? So we're going to go back through here. So, Diane, the way that these emergency measures are being dealt with is that the government said to councils, we expect you to put in place measures to allow people to get out of their cars and to get on their bikes and to walk. And we also expect you to make it safer for people to socially distance. So we expect you to widen pavements, close roads, get rid of rat runs, to encourage people to spend as much time outside as they can, particularly as people come back from shielding and they're really, really nervous, that actually if you make it so that they don't have to be squidged onto a little tiny pavement, or feeling that everyone's in their cars, you've got more chance of people feeling comfortable. So a bit of money was given to councils. We had to bid for some money. We received about £300,000, which was brilliant. But the rules were, you have to actually get these measures in within 4 weeks. You can't go through the usual months and months of consultation. What we want you to do, said the government, is you send out a 7-day notice. During that 7 days, people have got time to prepare for it, comment on it, to make sure that when it goes in for a maximum of 18 months, but to be reviewed after 6 months. And during the period of time that it is in the system, people continually consult. We then have the opportunity to look at changes within that time and if there are any changes to be made, we again have to give 7 days notice for that change. So you're right and you're wrong in that, yes, there was a consultation period. No, it wasn't a standard consultation period. The great thing about these projects is they're going to allow those businesses, when the government sorts itself out with allowing people to trade on the pavement, open restaurants up to trade on the pavement and things, to actually expand out onto the street so people can walk in the road and businesses can trade on the pavement. Ultimately, is the lower high street somewhere that should have cars down it? My personal view is no. I think it has the potential to be an incredibly exciting and brilliant destination for niche shopping and restaurants, and ultimately I suspect it will attract new businesses to that area because of the potential, but it is something which is temporary and cannot be made permanent without going through a full consultation. Face masks, if people can't wear, do they get a card with disabilities? It's down to shops to enforce and have systems. I would assume that similar things will apply on buses in terms of who's exempt, but this is enforceable, it is law, it's mandatory, it's not a guideline. Therefore, if you do go out without a face mask, you should expect, and you go into a shop, you should expect to be fined if the police approach you. I have mine. It goes everywhere with me. One stays in my pocket, one stays in my handbag. It's just something we're going to have to get used to. And I really hope people don't make a really big song and dance about it, because at the end of the day, this is for all of our safety, and the longer we can maintain a period without a spike, the less likelihood there is of a spike. So I would encourage everybody to make sure they have a face mask, keep it with them at all times, unless there is a really good reason why not. A really good reason. Okay, I understand the council has an interest in the building. We're not doing anything about it. Carol, I don't see your point. Councillor has no interest in the scheme. Please stop making accusations that they're completely unfounded. This is a decision that's been made through the portfolio holder and the cabinet. There are a lot of other schemes coming out throughout the whole area. Evening Hill has just opened as a cycle lane. We've got some other projects in other parts of Poole and in Bournemouth and in Christchurch, and you'll see them come on board. Okay, I've been shielding and I've recently been out for walks in Broadstone. Hi Mike. During the last few weeks I've been hearing from my non-shielding friends about the problems of inconsiderate cyclists. Well, cyclists shouldn't be on the pavement, so if they're on the pavement you need to report that to police, and your local police do have the ability to ticket for cyclists on the pavement. If they're in the road and you're a pedestrian, there shouldn't be an issue. If you're on the Castleman Trailway, then it is a shared space, so we have to work together. Yes, there are some inconsiderate cyclists that I've also seen and witnessed. A pedestrian female in Broadstone get her stick and try and physically remove somebody from their bike. So please, this isn't about cyclists, this is about people who are being inconsiderate to each other. Generally speaking, most cyclists are incredibly considerate, and they're also pedestrians. If the guidance states set 1 metre and you can have a wedding venue, why is the limit 30 people? The reason the limit is 30 people, James, regarding weddings. So the government rules, and I read them last night, is that no event can take place inside with more than 30 people, even in a private home. So if you wanted a birthday party or any sort of party in your home, you cannot have more than 30 people. It would be unlawful. 30 people is the limit for anyone gathered together. The only exceptions to that are outdoor events, which are run by a business, a public body, a political organisation or a charity, where there are specific rules around it and it's socially distanced outdoors. But indoors, the rules state you cannot have an event of any sort in a private building or a public building with more than 30 people. Until the government change those rules, there's nothing we can do. Same is true about these organised outdoor events. We've banned all events in BCP and events that are licensed by BCP on our land until the end of August. Although the social distancing rules have been relaxed, We won't be changing that, but we are planning today a meeting to actually look at what we do from 1st of September, and we're hopeful we are to start restoring some events. Dodge Dance, I'm not going into that. I mentioned last week developing Pool as a proposed development in the area around Pool Stadium. Can I let us know what this involves? The Pool Stadium, there was a plan to develop housing mainly in that area, and businesses, not shopping. Shopping is at the town centre. No, not a stadium on that location. I'm afraid I don't know whether it's a live planning application yet. You'll have to watch out for the planning process. Okay. I'm running through. We are running late, but I'm going to carry on for a few minutes because I recognise I didn't get any of your messages at first. Are we going to increase the number of blue badge disabled parking bays to reflect the increased number of applicants? We do regularly review that sort of thing according to the number of applicants. We have a strategic parking review coming up later this year, and the proliferation of disabled spaces will be a factor. We will look at how often those disabled spaces are used or not used, so that is fine. Are bays policed as they're frequently abused? Yes, they are. I have seen that happen, and we do have the ability to revoke someone's blue badge if it is abused. It is generally only done with frequent offenders, but part of our clamping policy does allow us to clamp those people who are abusing blue badges as well. Okay, do I know if people on the doors of businesses check masks? I'm afraid I don't know. It's down to businesses to decide how they police it. The council is not involved in the enforcement of masks. Obviously, where we have shops, so for example we have a couple of golf shops, and where perhaps we have a shop in a museum or something like that, we will have to consider it as the landlord and the owner of the business, but it's down to a business to decide how they deal with that. A quick question. Spending on cycle routes, how are we going to ensure they are used when everyone goes back to work? So it's been given to us, this money, as I said before, for short-term measures that have to come in very quickly and run for up to 18 months. If they're not used, they'll be returned. If they are used, then we'll make them permanent, but we'll make them permanent through a proper process. We've also got the Transforming Cities Fund, which is £79 million that's been given to us to improve sustainable transport. So that's around walking, cycling, buses, and electric share points, things like that. All of those things will encourage more and more people to not choose a private car. And as all of that work comes together, what we should end up with is a network so that people can get from A to B without having to worry about going into a busy road. And unless we actually push forward with making as many things happen as we can over the next year or so, we will never move forward, and we'll still be having this conversation in 10 years' time when we're utterly gridlocked. Last year we were the 4th most congested place in the country. That's not anything to be proud of. Our air pollution in particulates was some of the worst. Nitrous oxide, we were fine, but particulates, we were really high. Now, that's not just about transport, it's about things like solid fuel, it's about industrial use. But actually, we've got a responsibility to our own community and to the next generation and to the environment to improve that, and that's part of what we do. Okay, do I think £4.20 is reasonable to pay for 2 hours parking? Depends where it is. £1.50 an hour, £2 an hour is perfectly normal elsewhere in the country. Would you like a £50 increase in your council tax? A £100 increase, a £200 increase? Yeah, the council has to balance its budget. One of the ways of doing that is through fees and charges. So choices. We could cut services, we could increase fees. You have the choice about whether you want to park in a car park or whether you want to cycle or get the bus or walk or park further out and walk in. If you choose to use a car park and you know how much that car parking is, that is your choice. We need to make those choices available to everybody. Free parking is a nice idea, but it doesn't actually, it doesn't make sense, so it's not likely to be an issue. Masks should be free. Why should masks be free? You don't need to pay a lot for a mask. You could make a mask. There's some brilliant designs online. You could make a mask. I've seen people make masks out of socks. So there's nothing to, you don't have to have a professional mask. Go online, look up how to make a mask from a sock or a piece of fabric. This looks fairly like, that looks to me like something even I could make. It's a sort of funny shape with 2 bits cut out for my ears. Doesn't look very glamorous, but it does the job. So I don't think masks should be free. I think you should have the choice, and you could make one if you wish. Okay, is there a plan in place for a probable outbreak of COVID? So Dennis, I'm going to wrap it up in a moment because I've gone through as much as I can. In terms of a second wave, at the end of June, we published our local outbreak management plan. The local outbreak management plan is something which it enables us to address with our partners how we would deal with an outbreak whenever it happens. There are something called action cards, which gives us all the scenarios of who would take responsibility for what in the event of an outbreak in, for example, a care home, a school, a business, through the airport, through a shopping centre, a pub. We've seen lots of cases so far around the country where either a pub or a meat processing plant or a care home or a school has had an outbreak. All of those action cards will be worked on by the professionals, and we will be making sure that we can address any local outbreak and reduce the ability to manage something like that. But you know what? The biggest way of preventing an outbreak is remain 2 meters apart from each other if you can. If you can't do 2 meters, stay 1 meter. Wear a mask if you're in a confined space. Wash your hands. And if you have any symptoms of COVID, get a test, self-isolate. If we all do those things, it won't spread. That's, to me, let's live by those rules. They're not exactly horrendous rules. I mean, there's a whole lot worse we could be doing. But if we stick to those rules, we should be in the same place we are now. We've had 5 cases in the last 5 days. We're averaging 1 case a day. Out of 400,000 people, you have a 1 in 400,000 risk today of getting COVID today. That's not bad, actually. So over the course of the next year, if it remains at that level, there will be 365 people who will get COVID, of which a very small percentage will become very ill, and that's absolutely awful. But that is still a very low likelihood. But it will only remain that way if we all follow the rules. And some people refusing to follow the rules, it's just selfish, isn't it? The traffic in West Street is not working now. The option to filter right has gone. I'm happy to look at this, Anne-Marie, but again, feed local things through your ward councillors. That's what they're there for. If you have a ward councillor who's not responding to you, by all means then escalate it. But, please go to your ward councillor and say, can you help me fix this problem? Okay. So, Gavin, are various households allowed to meet in a home with up to 30 people now? The rules I read were that you cannot gather more than 30 people. You should not be staying overnight, I think, unless I don't. Who knows? I'm not the world's expert on the rules. I read them as I interpret them. The rules are no more than 30 people can be inside in the same place in private. But you'll need to look up those rules for yourself and decide for yourself what you think is appropriate. I certainly wouldn't go to an event with 20 or 30 people inside. Okay, I'm going to 1 more minute and I'm going to wrap up. If it hasn't been read, can I clarify why the new dog signs on the beach are so tiny and difficult to read from a distance? When the tide is out, they're unspottable. I don't understand what reference to the tide being out. If you're walking along the promenade, the dog signs will be on the promenade, would they not? We've had some really good compliments about the signage around dogs. It is clear on our website where you can have a dog and where you can't. When you arrive at the beach, it'll say dog beach this way or no dogs this way. The best thing to do when you arrive at the beach is work out where the dog beach is and stay there. Our beach rangers will tell people to move on if their dog is somewhere it should not be. The same is true for barbecues before 6 o'clock that are not allowed, apart from between groins 14 and 15, I think, in Bournemouth. So, please follow the rules. If we all follow the rules properly in terms of COVID, and we follow rules about just friendly behaviour, if you go to the beach, take your stuff away with you. You are perfectly capable of bringing it, take it away. If you've got a dog, check before you go where the dog's allowed. If the dog's not allowed there,
please don't bring it. It's totally out of order to bring your dog somewhere which says it's a dog-free beach, because it's not fair on people who do not wish your dog to be there. Please, if you're going to play loud music, please don't, keep it reasonable, think about other people. We are looking next year at trying to develop quiet zones for the beach, family zones for the beach. I'd like to see zones of the beach that are alcohol free, so that we can actually allow people who want a quiet day at the beach to have a quiet day at the beach, rather than have to deal with everything else that's other people choosing to inflict their way of having a good day on everybody else. Okay, so I think that's everything I can probably cover at the moment. It's 20 to 1. I'm going to wrap it up there. I will do my best to reply to as much as I can, but it's another crazy day at the office, and I will see you next week, and hopefully the technical issues, which meant I couldn't actually see what your questions were, will be resolved for next week. So lovely to see you all. Remember, if you do have a business and you think you might be able to claim under the discretionary business scheme, do register for our emails. And of course, if you want to get general updates on everything else we're doing, we do have a sign up thing, and loads and loads of people are registered for all sorts of emails about all sorts of different things. You don't have to register for general emails. You can register for specific things like libraries, culture, children's issues, environmental issues, and we will keep you updated. So lovely to see you all, and I'll be back again next week. Thanks.